Hello. The Western Slope Nonprofit Council is very pleased to bring you this mini session on nonprofit governance. It's super condensed from Noel Hagen's 3-hour session on this topic, which in turn could have been a 2-day workshop. This tiny presentation is intended for you, whether you're board or staff, to get an overview of what's involved in good governance, to let you start a conversation amongst yourselves about the health of your organization, and to let you identify where you might need additional help or some research to look more deeply into a particular topic. I'm going to romp through the basic roles and responsibilities of board members, then mention a few items that either you must have or that common sense says is smart to have. Finally, I'll pose 4 questions at the end that your group might want to ask itself to start your internal conversation. The big idea here is that boards of nonprofit organizations have legal responsibilities in federal and Colorado statute and ethical responsibilities. They're both federal and state laws that require things of you, as well as probably local ordinance. The 3 legal responsibilities are the duty of care. This means that you must manage your organization responsibly as you manage your own personal finances or your business finances. The duty of loyalty means regardless of how many hats you wear, when you're in that organization, you must make decisions that are in the best interest of your nonprofit without any conflicts of interest. If you have a conflict, it needs to be noted in the minutes, and you should probably absent yourself from the decision making, if not from the room altogether. The duty of obedience means that your nonprofit obeys all laws and regulations, which means knowing what those laws are, and you must ensure that your nonprofit always acts in a manner that's consistent with its mission and according to its strategic plan. So, what are your specific tasks? First, you must determine the organization's mission. That means what you do. Its vision, that's the picture of what you want the world to look like. And your values, the way you do things. For example, values might be inclusivity or transparency. You must develop and approve policies. Policies help board and staff make sound, consistent decisions within the context of your mission as well as the law. Bylaws are a body of policy which ensures the continuity of good governance over time. Another might be your employee manual. You must have a conflict of interest policy. The Sarbanes-Oxley federal law requires that you have a policy that protects whistleblowers and a policy about what documents you keep and for how long. You should have policies about your finances. You must have a policy about the confidentiality of what goes on in board meetings. Policies are big picture things. For example, the board might have a policy that anyone who uses your facility has to fill out a rental agreement. But the staff carries the policies out, so it would be up to the staff to develop the rental agreement and enforce it. Third, the board approves the job description for the executive director, hires that person, supports that person, which means, for example, no micromanagement, and evaluates that person's performance. The director creates other job descriptions and hires and reviews other staff. A board member becoming involved in that process is a good example of micromanagement. Fourth, the board creates a plan that has clear goals. Fifth, the board identifies the money the organization needs to meet its goals and then ensures that this money is found. If Noel Hagen were speaking instead of me, she would say that's non-negotiable. It is the board's responsibility to raise that money. The staff might do some of it, like writing a grant or gathering information, but every single board member must make a financial contribution to the organization in an amount that's meaningful to them. If you don't have a very big income, figure out what number that would be. If you do have a big income, figure out what that number would be, but the key is meaningful for you. And every board member has to help find more money. There are lots of ways of doing that. For example, you could ask your friends and family, of course. You could also take on the responsibility of managing a fundraising event. You could be the person on the board who writes prompt and personal thank you notes, because it's been shown that people who get prompt personal thank you notes are more likely to give again and, in fact, to bump up the amount of their gift. Each board member can work out with the board president and the executive director the best way that he or she will help raise these additional funds. The sixth duty is to ensure that the plan is carried out. The seventh duty is that the board enhances the public standing of the organization in this community. You represent that organization. You need to be positive about it and publicly support what it does, even if you may not agree with all of the individual decisions. Number 8, you ensure that your organization is run according to law and with integrity. Number 9, the board recruits new members and orients new members, and a good board assesses its own performance, just as it assesses the executive director's performance. Here are some things that either you must have or that it is smart to have. You must have bylaws. You must keep minutes. That's Colorado law. It's smart to approve a job description for your officers, all board members, all committees, as well as the executive director. You could create a board member commitment that they could sign that promises that they'll abide by their legal and ethical agreements with you and make an annual donation to the organization. Many nonprofits do that. It's smart to create a grid that identifies the kinds of people and skills your board needs in order to make its strategic plan come true for the next years, and to use this grid as a guide in recruiting new board members. It's smart to have a board self-assessment document. You should create a policy book that keeps track of all of the policy decisions your board has made and dates them. This helps ensure a smooth continuity of the organization from one board or from one executive director to the next. And finally, you should elect a board president who isn't timid about ensuring that all board members do what they promise to do and what's expected of them, like coming prepared to meetings, or not micromanaging the staff, or participating in fundraising in some way, or making their personal donation. The president should ensure that there's a meeting schedule that makes sense. It's reasonable, that meetings are focused, meaningful, productive, don't waste anybody's time. That's the single best way to retain good board members. A couple of resources that you might want to look into: Principles and Practices, available from the Colorado Nonprofit Association, is a succinct board governance manual. It's a free download from this website. There's also a good checklist that they have that the board can use as their internal self-assessment document. A second suggestion is to get a hold of the Nonprofit Policy Sampler. It's available from Board Source. It's not cheap, but your community foundation may have a copy of it, or several of you may want to go together to purchase one. It gives you sample policies that you can use. The next slide contains 4 questions that you might ask yourself right now to get started deciding what steps, if any, your board might want to take next. Here are the 4 questions. Do we as board members and as staff members know the federal and state laws that govern us? When did we last review our bylaws? Do we know where our bylaws are? Do we have a document that says what's expected of board members? And finally, is it interesting and fun to serve on this board? Thank you. We hope this has been helpful, and watch for the other videos in this series. Goodbye.